Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. Sagittarius, welcome to your full moon forecast. We are going to go over the main astrological themes for the next 2 weeks. Full moon in Sagittarius up to our next new moon, which is in the sign of Gemini. Sag, you cannot get away from Gemini. It is your antithesis. And really everything about the Sag person wouldn't really exist without polarity and dialectic and an antithesis at all. So this is a big, big theme for everyone, but for the Sag folk, it's coming right at the essence of who we are. And I say we because I am 100% there with you. I have a sun, Sag, in the 10th house. I have a stellium of Sagittarius in the 11th house. A stellium is when you have 3 or more objects, so planets, the luminaries, the sun and the moon, maybe positions, asteroids even. If you have 3 or more, you have a stellium. I have a very healthy stellium in Sagittarius in the 11th house and a sun in Sagittarius. So I am very much part of this forecast along with the rest of you. So we are going to look at the Sagittarius rising chart. We're going to use whole sign astrology. We are using tropical or Western astrology just so we're really clear on what the parameters of this forecast are. There's lots of different types of systems, house systems. Everybody's different. They're all valid. It's just a matter of understanding that particular dialect of the language in order to get what you can out of it. But what I'm using and what we're going to talk about today is through Western astrology or tropical astrology and the whole sign house system. So we will be looking at the Sagittarius rising chart and making forecasts, general forecasts based on the areas or the houses that the current solar system is situated in. So welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate all of you so very much. Welcome back. I know there's plenty of Sag people out there. It's almost like Scorpio, right? Scorpio never fails. They always deliver in terms of view count, because Scorpios really love to get to the bottom of themselves and everything else around them. So astrology is just one of those esoteric tools that Scorpio people, I think, are really attracted to. So I think the same thing is true as Sag in a totally different way. While the Scorpio energy is about going deep within, the Sag energy is about expanding out into potential and possibility, right? Sagittarius is the sign of the 9th house, which has to do with expanding and broadening your boundaries, your horizons, right? Self-expansion, understanding, and wisdom, right? So, but there's no wisdom without knowledge, and these things are distinctly different, and I think anybody who's on a spiritual path and taking it seriously at all, whatever it is, has come at some point to realize this distinction. And in astrology, this would be the 3rd and 9th house, Gemini and Sagittarius. So, Sag, I mean, we're all going to be going through it, including myself. I have a very healthy stellium here in Sag, 11th house and 10th house sun in Sagittarius. So I'm right there with all of you guys. So boy, and because it's so heavy with me, I am just feeling it, right? The the expansiveness into pontification is really hard for me to it's really hard for me to deny, right? It's very easy as Sag people to like kind of get on your soapbox and just really, share wisdom basically, right? You just are putting pieces together and synthesizing ideas into vision, into purpose, right? And a lot of times there's a lot of teaching that goes along with being a strong Sag person. So just bear with me. This is about the details, and as we're going to see, there's a lot of Gemini action coming and already happening. Of course, because we're having a full moon in Sagittarius, that means the sun is in opposition to the moon, and that means the sun will be in Gemini, and it currently is in Gemini. It just went into Gemini just a few days ago. Now, the big news about this and why I think this full moon for the Sag people, regardless of sun, moon, or rising, and really for all of us, but for Sagittarius people in particular, this full moon is very important to really emotionally and intuitively like connect to your Sagittarius nature as synthesizer, as someone who brings ideas together into, like I said, vision, understanding, right? Knowing that the experience of polarity or the dialectic is necessary for there to be any type of oppositional friction that catalyzes the transmutation into understanding or belief, right? That's Sagittarius in the ninth house. So this dynamic of Gemini Sag, you can't get away from it, Sag. The next new moon on the 6th of June, 7th of June, we're going to find out, is in Gemini. And so what is brought forward with any full moon, as many of you already know, is a beginning in consciousness, right? Full illumination of our inner self, the moon representing the living soul as it adapts to our experience and our life. It is our intuition. It is how we access the subconscious, right? And so at full moons, that which is often dark and within and hidden and in the void is fully illuminated for all of us to feel. And oftentimes this can be very dramatic depending on what's going on around it. But I would say for us Sag people, the illumination of this particular aspect, the degree that the moon is in, is something that we're going to look at in terms of the symbolism that is attached to it. Being able to transcend the dialectic, the polarity, in order to be objective and to have a calmer perspective and to almost ritualize the experience of opposition or thesis and antithesis, right? There's a lot of problem, reaction, solution, the Hegelian dialectic. It's something that is talked about quite often, especially in terms of, political systems and social systems. And it's often referenced, well, in some circles, I guess, more politically oriented circles, I guess you could say, that it's like some sort of negative thing. It is what it is, right? For every thought, there is going to be a counter thought. For every action, there's going to be an opposing type of reaction, right? So it's in the process of synthesizing and taking that energy and creating something new that the real wisdom comes from, right? And so otherwise, with the Hegelian dialectic, you are just kind of always in this perpetual state of problem, reaction, solution, then creates a problem, reaction, solution, creates a problem, reaction, solution. The Sag nature, and there's optimism, there's honesty, there is expansiveness, there's this ability to understand the big picture. But it requires that there is the experience of the friction and the duality to get there in the first place. And this full moon, I think, is going to really highlight emotionally, especially for the Sag rising people, where, it's really going to come to the essence of subjective I am as a personality. This perspective as if you're playing chess. Right, and that's actually the Sabian symbol for the full moon, as we're going to see. 2 to 3 degrees Sagittarius is two men playing chess, right? The transcendent ritualization of conflict in and of itself. And so there's more conflict to come. There's so much Gemini energy that's being represented, including the ruling planet of Sagittarius, which is Jupiter. So Jupiter also during this next 2 weeks, because that's what we're going to be looking at here, the main themes for the next 2 weeks from full moon to new moon, and how it is likely to impact, or at least what type of potentials are available to the Sag person during this next 2 weeks. We're going to be looking at those. We're going to be looking at those potentials, but for the Sag rising chart. But honestly, we all have to be doing this, not just Sag people. It's just they're going to be so much more adept at being able to step into this role of like, okay, seeing this experience, especially with Jupiter in Gemini, it's going to be weak. And this is why the full moon is really enhancing and expanding and giving us a lot of almost prophetic wisdom in some ways that may be about ourselves. It may be about the nature of our intuition or our feelings or how we're emotionally oriented. If you have a moon in Sagittarius, if you're a sun in Sag like I am, right, it's going to reflect something, especially if you have it close to your sun. It's going to reflect it's going to highlight the part of us that often is the antithesis of that, right? So and our job, regardless, especially as a Sag sun, will be to find a way to synthesize even that experience. All full moons are about relationship, and if you're a person that's been born at a full moon in your natal chart, then you're really, as a soul and what stage you're in, it's really about the relationship. And all full moons are like this. And I think that out of all the signs, Gemini to Sag is maybe, Aries and Libra too, in terms of the individual and the relationship. But Gemini and Sagittarius is about the relationship of opposition and how that creates something new, or create something sustainable, or meaning, or purpose, or vision. Sag. Please, whatever comes up, and Sag, Moon Sag is usually a pretty powerful and very optimistic type of energy. Like, we really tap into our strength. And as a Sag identified person, I mean, you just have to tap into who you are, or the person you express yourself as to the world, or how you feel. Like, it's just very natural to be able to ritualize. And not literally. I mean, I guess you can if you want, but it's more about being able to see and experience the opposition that normally will pull us into some sort of fear, right? Or some sort of aggression, or some sort of like just kind of cold logic, right? Where it's very narrow and crystallized, and there's not a lot of room for change. That's the thing about Sag, even Gemini too. They're mutable signs, they're malleable, they're changeable qualities. So the fire can be all kinds of, in many different states, right? It doesn't have to be just the flame or even the spark. It could be the coal fire. And that's actually what Sagittarius really is. It's like the coal fire. It is the fire that is burned down, and it doesn't seem like much is happening, but boy, oh boy, it's cooking your food. That's Sagittarius. So let's start looking at what to expect in the next 2 weeks. And we're gonna, like I said many times, we're going to look at the Sag rising chart. So if you're here learning about astrology and just kind of getting an idea of like, how do people do horoscopes? This is how, right? They use the rising sign, and they look at the current astrology in relation to the house system for that rising sign. And Sag rising, as you can see, most of the action is still in the bottom of the chart, the 4, 5, and 6 houses, which really is about individual expression. If the first 3 houses are how we come to individual identity, and Sag with Pluto and Aquarius like this, I mean, there's some serious destruction, elimination of thought patterns, honestly. Thought patterns that aren't necessarily yours to begin with. They're more from the collective, because it's Aquarius here, but they are becoming yours, and Pluto is doing a lot of cleanup. And right now it's very internalized. And we're going to look at all the connections to Pluto from all the Gemini energy. So Sag rising, in relationship, you become the pragmatic, logical, reasonable person. Because as a Sag rising, as your subjective personality of much more of the lawyer, so to speak, right? Ruled by Jupiter, right? This is big picture understanding. Sag rising people become very pragmatic and very matter of fact, and very curious in relationship. Like, it becomes very cerebral. You become very cerebral in the one-on-one relationship, right? You're there to learn. You're there to gather information. You're there to talk and communicate and exchange information. you know, very invested in that. So I think one of the things besides the full moon just highlighting so strongly that quality of like, oh yeah, this is just two sides of the chessboard, right? And that way you're calm, you're objective, you're not getting pulled into the Hegelian dialectic of a perpetual problem, reaction, solution, problem, reaction, solution. And yes, I mean, if you find yourself in relationship as a Sag rising, kind of operating that way, normally it's not that. Again, it's not that that is necessarily a bad thing, but there is a change. There is a transmutation of you, Sag, of us, that is on its way, and a maturity that's coming as well. I think especially with the next new moon, and then leading up to into the solstice, really. So we're going to start a little bit before the full moon. We're going to look at the moon at this last degree of Scorpio. Now, this is a very specific star that most people are probably familiar with, which is Alpha Centauri. So Alpha Centauri is actually it's a triple or a trinary star system. So there's two stars that are very close together that are a binary system. So they're very close and orbiting around not necessarily each other. They're orbiting around a center of gravity that they both share very closely. And these two stars are very similar to ours in terms of spectral class. But there is a third star system in the trinary at Alpha Centauri, which is Proxima Centauri, and it's much smaller, red dwarf that's further away. Still part of the system, but it's kind of off on its own. And it's actually much closer to us than the binary system. So Alpha Centauri is our closest stellar neighbor. It's something that I would read in a starseed reading for Alpha Centauri starseeds. There's a whole narrative for beings that, or souls that have that code or signature from Alpha Centauri, but I am going to share with you just some general facts about Alpha Centauri in terms of its constellation that the star is in, and more of the ancient and Ptolemaic astrology around this particular star. And the reason I'm bringing this up in particular is it's right before the full moon, so it's in the 12th house for the Sag rising people. So that in itself, I think, is, you know, there's a lot of subconscious connection to the field, if you want to, you know, the Akashic field, right? Or the formlessness of oneness in the 12th house. And there's a lot going on here, and the boundaries are kind of gone. Time and space doesn't really exist in the 12th house. So that in itself for the Sag rising is worth paying attention. But the fact and the fact that it is this particular star, Alpha Centauri, which is the closest star to us, right? But the other thing too is, number one, this star is in the Centaurus constellation, and the Sagittarius archetype really is of a centaur sometimes, or an archer, but the centaur is very connected to the archetype of the Sagittarian sign. And in fact, there are stars in the zodiac sign of Sagittarius that are also in this constellation. But we're focusing on 29 to 30 Scorpio. It's a very specific marking because it is, you know, Alpha Centauri. It also is important in this situation because of the connections that it's making to Venus and Jupiter, who are actually conjunct with each other at the very last degree of Taurus. So we're talking about the Pleiadian star cluster right now, and there's a whole set of general themes and potentials here just with Venus and Jupiter together, and they have a relationship down here with Neptune also in the last degrees of its home sign, and Venus is in the last degrees of her home sign, and Jupiter is the ruling planet of Sag. There is something very very powerful happening leading up to this full moon, Sag. So I want to spend some time focusing on these aspects. You can see how strong they are represented in the chart right now. And specifically because these last degrees of Taurus, and Uranus is in Taurus, Mercury is now in Taurus, will come out of Taurus in this 2 weeks leading up to the new moon and coming home to Gemini. I think this is going to be really important as well, because getting a handle on this Gemini energy is the way that the Sag person comes to really know who they are. Without the conflict, there is no catalytic or catalyzing effect of transmutation, of inner alchemy, right? Which is spiritual. That's all that, that is like the highest version of the Sag energy, is that that cosmic perspective, that wisdom. So the 6th house has been, where until somewhat recently, where all the action had been, right? All the Taurus energy. What's the 6th house? This is your works and labors, your service, your self purification, right? Whether it's always in service, right? And so if it's always in service to God or to Source or to to something divine and sacred, then what shape it takes and what trajectory it's in doesn't really matter. But at least for the Sag rising, there, the 6th house, which is usually Virgo, at least it's still an earth sign. It's Taurus. But there's been a lot of action here. So a lot of times the 6th house is kind of where we have to get our shit together. We have to purify our actual bodies. We have to get habits and routines, in particular. Healthy routines become something that we establish due to the 6th house. It's the functionality of our structure, which is really the 2nd house. Sometimes it can be as mundane as just what your work, right? What do you do on the daily? What is your work routine? What are you spending, what are you using your resources? How are you using your resources, right? And it depends on what those resources are. But there's always this element of service that's attached to the 6th house. It's where, we have to put our money where our mouth is, which is kind of disgusting. But you know what I mean. It's a really weird phrase. I kind of want to look into it now and see like what does this really mean? So, but the 6th house, I just say it's where we get our shit together. So it might be that you have to like start a practice, right? There may be a really powerful healing that needs to be happening. And so that could be purification and detox, right? That could be, working out or doing some sort of therapy and it's something consistent. The 6th house is about consistency. But there's mutability here, which can be hard having Taurus in the 6th house, which is a fixed earth energy. So it's probably good that Uranus is here, because it's kind of forcing the change or forcing some momentum to happen in this area. And now Mercury, which usually likes to be in a 6th house, it's very analytical here. It's very analytical as a resource, especially in Taurus, but also just being very down to earth in one's analysis and processing of or analyzing information. That's what Mercury is doing in the 6th house. Okay, so again, Venus is at home in Taurus, and she's here, and she's conjunct to the ruling planet of Jupiter in this 6th house. Like, so much is coming to consummation here, right? And usually Venus and Jupiter together is really beneficial, right? So if we were to just kind of look at, some basics about Venus conjunct Jupiter, and not to mention being at the last degree of Venus's home territory, it portends love and money, harmony and happiness, right? You don't have to work so hard. And I think that there's something to be said for that in terms of the house, where that's what you're supposed to be doing, is working hard. These two come together, and it's just like everything has kind of come to a point of consummation, right? And it's not about being like completely aloof. It's about enjoying the benefits of everything that you have done in this area so far, right? Especially like quote unquote good karma from your previous good deeds. It's really just kind of reaping the benefits of all the hard work that's happened and being able to kind of, I don't know, strut around a little bit. 30 degrees Taurus is a peacock that's kind of parading around. And yes, Jupiter is the ruling planet of Sag. It can be a little bit too expansive in this area, okay? But for the most part, this is a very lucky transit. There's inner harmony, there's warmth, there's friendliness. There's a lot of good opportunity when these two come together, and I think that there's a sense of confidence that I think can come along with this when they come together. Now, the thing is, they're opposite of this Alpha Centauri, and they're both in a sextile to Neptune, which is in the 4th house along with Saturn. So sextiles from Venus and from Jupiter. I mean, these are like, again, you just have layer upon layer of good fortune and growth and harmony and creative energy, right? Especially with Venus in a sextile to Neptune, it can be very sensual. It can be very relational. Neptune in the 4th house, I mean, it really broadens and it broadens the root system in terms of what family and, where you feel you belong. It really makes that into humanity as a whole. Friends and groups of people become very important when Venus and Neptune are in a sextile. And I feel like that there's been a lot of work done in terms of one's own sense of power and the family dynamics that we've come out of. And we can bring whatever we visualize into the next cycle of creative potential. And that's what Neptune's going to do when it comes into Aries eventually, which is not long from now. It's going to retrograde before that happens, but it's not long before Neptune and Saturn are conjunct at the vernal equinox at 0 degrees Aries. It's going to be quite the revival. But in the meantime, I think there's just been a lot. It's Saturn here too. It's really, holding it down and almost forcing. I don't want to say forcing the issue because that's not it. It's just like, okay, these are the root systems that aren't going anywhere, right? And they have a lot to teach, and they have a stable, almost restrictive quality in terms of these areas. These are things you're kind of not getting out of. But then Neptune is just like, but all of it's mutable. All of it is formless and boundaryless in the spirit, right? When it comes to spirit, when it comes to our relationship to divinity. And so whatever we visualize out of that is what we bring into the next cycle. And I feel like that there is a lot here for the Sag person, especially Sag rising person. There's just a lot of harmony. There's a lot of inspired creativity. There is a lot of people becoming very important, a lot of life enriching types of situations, and especially in terms of being compassionate and how that can increase your self-esteem, make a real difference to other people. That's the other thing too. I do see as well like this really powerful infusion into works and service in a way that's like there's been so much done and there's been so much work happening that it can't be anything but positive if you are willing to feel like humanity is your family, right? And that yes, there are things that that's what Saturn is. That's natural law. There are things that we can't change. They've happened. They have already become fabric of the unfolding geometric matrix of the sacred blueprint, right? We're not going back and changing them. Those things have us a lot to teach. It's Neptune here. So maybe, you know, and maybe that is influencing the work on yourself. Maybe that is reinforcing how far you've come, how far you've come. And maybe there is something you really want to implement in terms of your work, right? Your service. Maybe something's changing here, but it does feel more consummative and a lot of really good, like good luck and harmony and happiness all around in these areas. So now we look at Alpha Centauri and Ptolemy. So you can go to the website astrologyking.com. There is a huge database of fixed stars and what constellations they're in. So this is where this information is coming from. So you're welcome to go find that. I'll try to remember to, you know, pin it in the comment section. We'll see if that actually happens. But I'd like to share a little bit with you about Ptolemy or Alpha Centauri, and it is a triple star system. We already went over that. It's in the front knee, you know, the forward knee of the, here, I'll show you an image actually, in the Centaurus constellation. Let me open this real quick. Here we go. You see this? Yes, you do. Here it is, Rigel Centaurus. If you look down and the left leg and the knee is bent, this is where Alpha Centauri is. And so this is the entire constellation of Centaurus, right? So he's got a spear. Sometimes Sagittarius has the bow and arrow, always facing up, always expanding into the big picture, right? So that's, oh, it's really raining right now. So that's really cool. I may have to pause this in order to close some windows if it gets really rambunctious. And it was earlier today. Oof. I really had to do like some car shielding because the lightning was like striking like really close to where I was driving home from work. So that's where Alpha Centauri is. So again, I'm just going to be sharing. Move tab to new window. There we go. I'm going to be sharing some of the information from astrologyking.com, which is also where that particular image just came from, which is why I really, really like that site, because there's just such a complete database with fixed stars and constellations. Okay, so Ptolemy or Alpha Centauri. An ostrich. Yeah, the name Ptolemy comes from the Arabic al-Zulman, meaning ostriches. Oh, this has come up before in a conversation with someone. And do a little research on ostriches. They have a pretty powerful significance. So the astrology, sometimes this star is called Bungala, which is a really funny name. It bore the ancient name Ptolemy, meaning the heretofore and the hereafter. Oh, you mean like the past and the future, right? And the present is right now, always happening, right? That's one way to synthesize the heretofore and the hereafter. So according to Ptolemy, right, it is the nature of Venus and Jupiter. Oh, well, isn't that convenient, actually? Because it's Venus and Jupiter that are conjunct. They've lined up, and they are opposite of the moon at this degree. That's very interesting. It has the nature of these two planets. It gives beneficence and friends, refinement, and a position of honor, right? So there is something in the, maybe you can call it the Akash, maybe your soul's blueprint, right, Sagittarius? Something that you can intuitively tap into, something that's more than just this personality and this lifetime, something that has to do with the entirety or the entirety of your soul, right, with all of the different experiences and iterations. And this is in the area of the 12th house of all of it. And you're picking up on that. So I also feel like Sagittarius that you can draw so much off of these attributes in a way that might not be necessarily obvious to you right now, but is something that you can tap into. Past lives, you know, multidimensional aspect of your soul, however you want to understand it, because to me those are kind of the same thing. So let's see here. Jupiter and Venus. It's like Jupiter and Venus. So it's also kind of like in opposition to Venus and Jupiter, right? It's not kind of, it is in opposition to it. So, what does that mean to you? What does that mean when that quality of that, those stars is represented by something that's in direct opposition to, those planets in direct opposition to them now? Well, I would say that it's setting up the experience of the dialectic right in the personal experience in general, right? The two sides of the soul and the current personality experiencing itself right now. You even need that in order to grow and evolve. So, what else about Alpha Centauri? This star imparts to its natives. Now, you may have Alpha Centauri in your charts, right? And if you do, then boy, oh boy, this is going to be even more impactful. This star imparts to its natives a fatalistic attitude. Oh, generates a position of honor. That's pretty cool. And grants the native refinement possibilities and friends who come to the native's assistance. Oh, I like that. Bungala has a Jupiter-Venus nature, but there's an added peculiarity that relationships with females often seem spoiled. Oh, that's too bad. Or an existing happy relationship is stricken by exceptional circumstances. Again, imagine having an existing happy relationship, everything's going fine, and there's an exceptional circumstance that creates opposition. It creates conflict. And then you get brought into the friction itself. Well, Sagittarius, this is what you're here for. This is you are the catalyzer. You are the alchemist, right? So when Bungala is well positioned, it helps the native to gain a position of honor and power, right? Now it says the conjunction of Neptune with Bungala appears to be most disadvantageous. If one looks into past events, they always seem to tally up with disturbances, riots, periods of storm and stress, and revolt. Now, I would like to point out, though, that Alpha Centauri is in a trine to Neptune, not a conjunction, so it's not getting activated. It is stabilizing. So I think that's actually really beneficial, personally, especially with Neptune in a house that is just like, well, where do I belong? There's no boundary here. I don't know, really. It's so broad and vast and spiritual and watery that where do I end and others begin? Like, where does my root system go? I think that there is, that's a good question. I just got lost there. I really did. So, I think that, there's something about this particular star that is going to really help stabilize. Again, something intuitive that's getting really brought up into our conscious awareness with the full moon about who we are, that is, potentially going to be not only very emotionally stabilizing, but then also being able to visualize, this is where I belong. This is where my power comes from. So, Sag rising. What else is there to say about Alpha Centauri? Very self-sacrificing. And when I do the starseed readings for Alpha Centauri and starseeds, or, souls that have a connection or a signature from this star, people are very self-sacrificing, but it's not their self that they're sacrificing. It is their connection to source or divinity or God, or just the infinite nature of their own soul. That's what is the source of the giving. It's not giving of themselves. It's about being definitely connected to a stream that is infinite. And then it seems self-sacrificing, but it really isn't. And they can afford that expenditure, especially if this star is well aspected in your chart, right? So a bountiful flow of energies. Absolutely. And it rules 2 inches below the navel. Oh, imagine that. Seems like that's the second chakra to me, right? That is the second chakra. So, creativity, right? Our immune system, a sense of, generative energy coming from the sacral chakra. I think that it can be a little bit destabilizing or confusing when other aspects, say either past lives or other aspects of our multidimensional self, start to kind of bleed in. And this is why I think Venus and Jupiter opposite that is like, there's more that is coming to a head here than just what has happened in this particular lifetime. And I guess that is a function of the veil getting thin. And so that in itself will create friction, either internally, personally, professionally, whatever. And Sag, this is where the full moon's gonna be like, can we emotionally view and kind of transcend the conflict as if it's a chess game, right? Be more pragmatic, be more objective about it, right? Not get so emotionally involved. I think that's going to really help just in general, because once that happens and we move into all of this Gemini energy, especially Jupiter, yeah, it's going to be very pragmatic, and it's going to be very reasonable and logical and potentially very narrow, right? Problem, reaction, solution, problem, reaction, solution. And I think that the thing that's going to break it up, honestly, is all of the trines, as you're going to see along the way to Pluto in the third house. So Sag, Pluto in Aquarius, especially Sag rising, this is really eliminating a lot of thought patterns that just need to go. And now it's being very internalized, right? There were events probably in the immediate environment in terms of the people you communicate with every day. Maybe you have roommates, maybe you have neighbors, maybe you have coworkers, right? The way that you communicate, the nature of your content consumption, right? The ideas that you are working with, all of this, listening, speaking, communicating, writing, reading, all of this stuff is third house. Sag rising people especially, but I would say just in general, Sag people, you're gonna it's the collective that is really making itself into your own neural pathways, right? And there's a lot of stuff going on there that is being eliminated. And now, like I said, it's internalized with the retrograde because it's kind of an emptiness period externally. And so those thought patterns within yourself, they are being eliminated, and there is a recognition of what has already been destroyed here, and really making the connection to what that is revealing within your own mind and the way that you communicate and the way that you conceptualize information, right? It's really just about eliminating these really bad thought trenches neurologically and cognitively and communication wise and just information. If you can keep a sense of innocence and kind of openness and almost even like excitement about what's coming forward in relationship, being open to those things in terms of the way you express yourself, in terms of the way you understand the purpose of the relationship with Jupiter there. It's going to be hard for Sag people to have Jupiter and Gemini because we're so accustomed to being like, oh, I see the big picture. Jupiter, and it's going to be a lot of details that Jupiter's going to have to deal with, and it'll be a lot, I wouldn't say easier. It's not going to be a lot easier. There's just going to be, it's going to, I keep getting this sense of just like, just kind of like almost like a record skipping, or just kind of like caught in a labyrinth a little bit, just like, oh yeah, it just goes around and around and around. And until you can like be able to work with the actual details themselves, which Jupiter is not very good at, right? It does not represent an energy that is capable of really dealing with the details. The other thing though is that for the Sag people, we have a great representative in that seventh house of relationship. I think it's going to be a lot better when Mercury and Jupiter get together. But anyway, let's back up a little bit because this dynamic is important for what's coming. And then, I'm just going to give you kind of the dates of like, okay, this is when these things are happening as we kind of round this out. The sun has already been in a trine to Pluto. Venus will come into a trine with Pluto, right? Jupiter will come into Gemini and trine Pluto. And those all are going to give what is being destroyed in terms of the mind and the mental sphere and the thought processes and the mental habits and the communication styles, right? What is going through that destructive process, that elimination process, that experience is going to be very like powerfully influential on you in relationship. And if you stay open, it's going to be in relationship that you are getting that feeling, that sense of empowerment. So let's look at all these Jupiter. This is where things that might not be necessarily connected to this particular lifetime or this dimension of experience might be translating into this particular lifetime and dimension of experience through the quality of the relationships around you. So the first is Venus is going to trine Pluto, adds a lot of intensity and adds a lot of passion. Actually, we should just look at that, So just to real quick, just so we are clear about where we're starting. Here's Thursday the 23rd. The full moon is going to be on that day, 2 to 3 degrees of Sagittarius, 2 to 3 degrees of Gemini. Please put a pin in that in terms of the degrees, because something is going to come up that's going to be really important by the end of this, especially to the Sagittarius people, because it's going to involve Jupiter. So 2 to 3 degrees Sag and Gemini. Okay, that's the 23rd. And then we're moving towards, and this is Thursday of this week, we're going to start moving towards, now Venus is in Gemini, and it's going to come into a trine with Pluto in the middle of the weekend. And in the United States, this is Memorial Day weekend. So Monday is Memorial Day, where we remember fallen armed forces, veterans, or honor the veterans, remember those who have fallen, basically, anybody who has served in the armed forces in the U.S. So this is a weekend where people are naturally going to do stuff. They're getting together, because we have this extra day off on Monday, right? Some people are very true to this particular holiday as well. So there's parades and there's picnics and all kinds of stuff. So we're getting into that weekend. And so Venus, who is already the normal ruler of the 7th house, okay? She's now in the 7th house, and she's less interested in the dynamic of the relationship if it's balanced, and more interested in the conversation, and more interested in the back and forth and discovery and curiosity in relationships, and relationships providing that. Wow. So she's going to come into this trine with Pluto. So it adds intensity, it adds passion in relationship, and especially the things that bring you joy and satisfaction. So you start to feel much more deeply about people in your, especially for Sag rising, about your loved ones. And so, and there's also this, there can be more, how do I say this? There can be obsession and fascination with a lot of different things. And for Sag rising, I would say, and Sag in general, I'd say it has a lot to do with relationship. It just, anything that is the antithesis of you or how you express yourself or even how you feel is going to be expressed through relationship in some way. And so this is just going to make those relationship experiences, because Venus is about what is valuable to us, what is meaningful to us physically and in our senses, right? She likes to be comfortable. Now it's more about the unexpected change in terms of communication, having just a really profound impact on the nature of relationship in general and how you approach them, right? Maybe you're approaching relationship with a bit of curiosity and innocence now and kind of enjoying it, right? That doesn't have to be, through the old framework as what existed, because, Pluto is just coming through and eliminating all of those communication habits and all of those thought processes. So yeah, this is, it can be, you can kind of like take it over the top, I would say, especially in relationship, because Pluto is really adding to that kind of mystery and appeal with Venus. But I think it's more about being open and curious and willing to discover by creating a space in order for something new to come in. And so maybe it's just in the process of the relationship itself and being a little bit more profoundly moved by it that you realize that, oh, boy, it's a good thing that this thing blew up in my face, and I have to eliminate all these really unhealthy thought patterns or communication style, because now I can see that there's something even better that's potentially coming, and I can get a sense of that. Now, you'll have to, and you're still in the full moon phase. We'll all be in the full moon phase for a couple of days. And so just remember that the moon will still be very full. It's still in Sagittarius, which is obviously your sign, our sign. And keep in mind that we're still kind of having that energy reflected very strongly about, it's about bringing together the two poles. It's about the inner alchemy. It is about, but you need the two aspects in order to perform the alchemy to begin with, right? And that's what Gemini is all about. And it's without the relationship, there really is no opportunity to alchemize as a person. And so Sag, it's like your spiritual work really is in the relationship. So there you have Venus trine Pluto. This is over the weekend. So, things just get more profound and kind of intense, but I think in potentially a really powerful way, in a positive and transformative way. Where are we at here? So the next big one is something that is going to be I like to call it a harmonic, right? So if you remember, our new moon was in Taurus, which, of course, for this Sag rising is your 6th house, where you get your shit together. So we know that there is something spontaneous emerging out of this, out of a kind of a virgin space, right? And Virgo, which is the 6th house, is very much related to that kind of virgin, the Vestal virgins. And it's not about being a virgin sexually. It's more about the commitment of the woman's energy and life is to sacred tasks, right? Or priestesshood or whatever, right? The Vestal virgins were definitely the priestesses of Vesta's temple. So the new moon was in this house. And so what we're going to see here as we go into the end of the weekend into Monday, Mercury is going to come into a sextile with Saturn. So we talked a little bit about Saturn being in the 4th house and how it's really kind of holding it down, really establishing the aspects of root system that are not just going to be bypassed. Sorry, but there's a lot to be learned and a mastery to be developed by that. Mercury is going to sextile. I think it's going to be on the actual on Monday. I do believe, yes, on Monday, maybe very early Tuesday morning. But the sextile with Mercury to Saturn, really gives a lot of clear thinking and good judgment, and it's really a harmonic mentally. In that of the new moon, right? We're still in the middle of that cycle that started with a new moon in Taurus, 19 degrees Taurus, a new continent rising out of the ocean. So something brand new, spontaneous, that can't really be anticipated when and how. It's just going to come, and it's going to have its impact in the area of your works and labors, right? Your service to whoever and whatever, it's service. So if that service is your purification and healing, if that service is a literal service, a volunteer, your daily work routine, if that service is a practice that you're instituting, whatever it is, this is, there's a really clear thinking, good judgment, and very analytical, common sense kind of approach to, oh, I see this is coming up now. And it's the sextile to Saturn in particular that is, there's much to learn here, and being very self-disciplined and prudent about it, right? So maybe catching up on paperwork and studying and researching and things like that, but really I think more about analyzing what you've learned in terms of where you belong, where's your power come from, who your family of origin, how that is emotionally influenced you. The fourth house is your character. So this transit, I think, is really almost just as important as the full moon, honestly, in terms of like really mentally getting the head very locked into the, like I said, self-discipline, common sense, clear thinking, from a very unyielding position in terms of our character and our self-esteem, which is, developed in the fourth house. Really excellent mental skills, and it's open and honest communication, right? And maybe that's the service. Maybe open and honest communication is the service. Maybe that's the way that that's the new practice, right? Is a whole new communication style. Maybe you have to practice it in order to get it down, but regardless, discussions are going to be very profound, and you may want to like share things with people. Maybe it's a good time to like write a post or a blog or something. Maybe you'll just end up being a mentor like in your family situation with the Saturn in the fourth house like this. It's a really good time for studying and teaching to, and Sag people. You have no problem telling people, what is, very judgmental, I have to say. We all are. It's something I have had to really work with. So that's happening on Monday, Mercury sextile Saturn, as the moon continues moving through the first three houses. Now, the third quarter moon is going to be in Pisces, and that's going to be the next day. So this is always, third quarter moons are ideological crises, and every time I do these forecasts, the moon is in the fourth house when it's at this ideological crisis point. The sun will be conjunct Aldebaran, right? So for you Starseed people or anybody interested in fixed star astrology, Aldebaran is the star that is the left eye in the Taurus constellation. The particular degree of both of these places, the sun in Gemini and the moon in Pisces, both of them have corresponding but opposite energies attached to them. And so the moon in Pisces, 9 to 10 degrees Pisces, is about sailing up and above the clouds, right? Like pursuing your journey by going up above the clouds. So it's just you above everything. You don't have a vision of what is on the ground. Whereas the sun at 10 degrees Gemini is the complete opposite, right? It is a nosedive. And so there's a risk here that I think we all know that there's this mind over matter type of risk. And for Sag, it's going to be in relationship. You know what I mean? It's going to be in the realm of who are you in relationship, like bringing out your own opposition, taking the nosedive, right? Mind over matter, like challenging gravity, so to speak. And it's, very exhilarating. Whereas the moon in Pisces is like, while at the same time, your spirit, your soul, right? The part of you that is infinite, which the moon allows us to connect to. That is its role. That is exhibiting a spiritual mastery, right? Where it's completely sailing high above the clouds. all squares, especially these moon quarter squares, right? These are always like definitive crisis points, and especially an ideological crisis, because it's going to feel like if I do one, I can't do the other, which is not true. The real trick here is to just shed away what's not coming on the journey, and realize that you are, in fact, masterful in this area of your personal power and your core. And that allows you to really express yourself in this kind of more dangerous, taking the nosedive in a relationship, in some sort of relationship, and trusting your connection to source and your intuition, knowing that there's this level of mastery. I think based a lot on Saturn and Neptune being here, that it kind of frees you to like just take the plunge and really find some sort of personal sustainment out of that. That's pretty fascinating. And at the same time, oh my gosh, look at this. Nothing new under the sun here with Lilith conjunct the South Node, right? That there is at a soul level. It's just like, oh yeah, we've been here before. We've been here before. We've been here before, right? It's about the circular path. In societally, that's the 11th house, right, is the societal realm, right, the social realm that we're part of, the social organism. So that's coming into next week, right, a week from now, which is the next lunar quarter. Right after this, I have to say, right after this is when Mercury and Uranus are in a conjunction with each other. So, boy, talk about stimulating your thinking. So just a couple days prior, the sextile to Saturn is like clear thinking, good judgment, self-discipline, right? And then these two come together where it's your mind, and then your third eye opens and influences your mind, and it gets very exciting. It's electrifying. There's definitely some breakthrough in terms of your work and your service and your practice and cultivation of natural energies for something more than yourself, right? A very high devotion to the practical welfare of all people. I just feel like that there's going to be a huge breakthrough and flashes of insight for the Sag people around how their works and their service is for and it is very devoted to the practical welfare of people, right? Whoever the, family or society as a whole. It's going to be very difficult to concentrate when Mercury are conjunct like this. Thankfully, it's in Taurus, which is very grounding, but also when Uranus is involved and is moving the fixed Earth around or your resources around, that can be very ungrounding as well. We're getting into the Pleiades. So there is a connection. And it's important, I think, if you have Pleiadian Starseed connections, that knowing that this is going to really stimulate some things, and you might find yourself wanting to, and quite naturally acting on instinct here and a sense of like command and authority over oneself. But this is a really great condition for like maybe the analysis and technical analysis, right? Or some sort of mathematical analysis where grasping concepts is more important than memorizing like it's like you do the practice over and over and you just do it. It's almost rote, right? It's repetition. That's how you build up muscle memory. That's how you create new neural pathways. That's how you create new communication structures or systems. And then one day it's just happening, right? You don't have to think about it. You don't have to make yourself do it. It just becomes part of what you're doing. And I think that there could be like this, really powerful like quantum leap type of thing here with this, or just a real big flash of insight or a breakthrough in some way. Or you could just really grasp something that you hadn't before. Like you can really analyze things in a completely new way that you hadn't been able to. Now, this could also be unexpected news, and it doesn't mean it's good or it's bad. And for the Sag rising people, again, this is, this may have to do with, what you're doing, right? Your work. You could get fired from something or lose your job in some way. or something, some sort of news is kind of forcing a change in what you're doing on the regular. And you may not want to jump to conclusions, right, at this point, because it'll be very easy to do that, because you're going to have really rapid reaction time here. So gaining higher awareness, experimenting, but it's not really good for like serious negotiations or sticking to a routine, right? You got to roll with the punches on this one, especially in terms of your routine in the 6th house, right? Things may malfunction, errors in judgment, spelling mistakes. That's really funny. Erratic thought and communication style affect personal interactions, which can lead to either exciting discoveries about yourself and others. And I think this is where a lot of things are going. And there's so much compelling potential here in terms of your works and labors and service for the Sag rising, that especially as it can cultivate, natural energies and really address and be very dedicated to the practical welfare of people. I think that's really, big breakthroughs here. And then we come into June. And Jupiter comes into a trine with Pluto. So this is, so there was the Sun, and then there was Venus, and as you can see here, Venus is about to conjunct the Sun. But first we're going to look at Jupiter trine Pluto. So we've had many of these trines, so it just dramatically increases your power and influence. Now, Jupiter is not very powerful in Gemini, so this is really going to help increase your power and influence. Pluto is going to very much assist in this, because Pluto is our access to power. So you can positively transform your own life, your environment, other people's lives. I would say that that's also a strong potential here. The most significant gains during this period come from maintaining high morals and not acting selfishly. And sometimes, Jupiter can get lost in the big picture and not see the details. And in Gemini is going to have to, right? We're going to have to. Gains will still come by putting yourself above others, but the improvements will not have the lasting transforming qualities associated with this transit. It's like if you can put yourself in front of other people, but it's not going to last. It won't stick, right? It's about, sticking to a high moral, like a moral high ground, sorry. And the transitions on the way could include promotion. They can include increased power and wealth. Journeys made now will also powerfully transform your outlook. This is meant to be very satisfying and evolving phase of life. And again, it's the third out of these trines all in a row, from the Sun and Venus and Jupiter. So and then Mercury comes into Gemini, and then also comes into a trine with Pluto. So again, this is where you profoundly influence other people. And again, gains are, you can deeply understand things. Sorry about that. I guess it's that time of night that people drive really fast on a dark, wet road. It's so crazy. Uncovering secrets, research and investigation. This is Mercury, right, coming in. And this truly, we're in our balsamic moon phase, by the way. So we're at the last phase. And this is where the moon's coming into your 6th house. Mercury comes into Gemini. It has that trine with Pluto. So then the ability to deeply understand, to research, to investigate. When Mercury is in the 7th house, we really learn more from the relationship. And so then you get, and especially in Gemini, boy, it's just going to be like on point at this stage for the Sag rising people by the time we get into June leading up to the new moon. Now, the best part about this is that Mercury comes into conjunction with Jupiter at the degree of the full moon that we're about to have, right? 2 to 3 degrees Gemini. So optimism, good news, fortune, feeling broad-minded, generous and friendly. Ideal time to start something new, right? Many ideas come into your head. Write them down. I think that that is going to be especially about who you are in relationship, how you are processing relationship, because the things that are being eliminated in terms of your own thought processes, Sagittarius, they are the things that are going to be reflected in the quality of your relationship. So there's going to be so much like ideas coming to your head, right? Settling disputes is going to be a lot easier now. There's diplomacy. This is Mercury conjunct Jupiter. All kinds of business deals are favored. Just look at the fine print, and that's what Mercury is going to help Jupiter with, right? The fine print. Jupiter is all about the big picture. You can see the bigger picture, but you may need assistance to check the more minor details. Well, Jupiter's at its detriment and Mercury is at home. And so Mercury is going to be like, here, let me go over this. Let me show you how to work with dualistic concepts as they are, right? And then you see that they will take us eventually to that synthesis or that alchemy. So, you can sign contracts as long as you know what you're signing and you have gone over the fine print and you are understanding what is and what isn't. Excuse me, making plans for the future is favored. Have fun. I would say just enjoy the process, right? The Garden of the Tuileries in Paris is at the Palace of Versailles. And the whole idea here is that there is something to be said for the age of enlightenment, if you want, with all of its problems. The idea here is that there is luxury and there is a way to make the most of our ability to be intelligent and to have knowledge. We don't get the wisdom without the acquisition of some sort of knowledge. And so this is where we get good news. And there is a very positive frame of mind in terms of the way that Sag people are approaching relationship at this point, that to kind of just enjoy it, right? Have fun with it. Realize that, yes, there's a big picture to be understood. And that was with the full moon. But what did the full moon really say? It was like, just treat this like it's a chess game, right? And that's not to belittle or to minimize anything that's happening, because there's some significant things that are really big conflicts in people's lives when it comes to problem and reaction. And there is a solution. And I think this Mercury-Jupiter conjunction is going to be like, hey, there's always the opportunity for solution, right? Arbitration, maybe, if you want to think about it that way. And on top of that, it just keeps getting better. Venus and the Sun are conjunct, right? And so the clarifying of your experiences through actually talking to people is going to be very enhanced, because you're going to be very focused on companionship and people and being around people that you like, and in environments that are very harmonious and easy and able to talk with people, right? Engaging with people, improving your relationships with people, being more sociable, having more fun, just sharing ideas, right? I feel very like there's a lot of enthusiasm here. Peace and harmony means you should have diplomatic skills. You can easily make friends, win over enemies. Sympathetic and compassionate nature risks compromising too much to keep the peace. And I think that it's going to be less about keeping the peace so much as enjoying the space of interaction, sharing ideas, actually clarifying our experiences by talking to people. And Sun and Venus together, just in general, is really going to make us want to be together and to interact with each other and have companionship. And then in Gemini, especially 15 Gemini, we're really going to want to talk to each other. Like, that's where we're going to learn the most about ourselves, is in the conversation. And then you have Jupiter and Mercury at home in Gemini also here together, right? And they're still within that trine to Pluto. So something absolutely, a whole new way of relating is coming out of this curiosity and this openness to a different way of being in relationship. But you have to accept the conflict as part of the package, because there is no alchemy without the friction, right? There is no catalyst without the friction, right? There has to be something that creates the need for a chemical reaction in the first place, which is usually social or relational friction. So that's going to take us up to, and we're going to find out for sure, the new moon in Gemini, which is going to be at 16 to 17. There we go. It's on the 6th. 16 to 17 degrees Gemini. This is Rigel in the Orion constellation, so that's a pretty significant starseed thing. So we'll talk about that. Sag, I really encourage you to listen to the Gemini report when it does come out, because you never know. Especially if you're Sag rising or you have Gemini in your chart and you're also a Sag, you're just getting an idea of the nature of that new moon, I think, is really important. So before we close out here, I'm going to just pull a card for y'all and see what comes up for us Sag people for this full moon. All right, so I'm pulling from the Akashic Tarot deck, at least to start, and we'll see what comes out. Sometimes I don't often like stop and then pull cards. I just shuffle until they come out. Oh, okay. Archangel Gabriel. So this is number 3, right? Just like the degree of the full moon, 2 to 3 degrees of Sag. The sun will be at Gemini. So Archangel Gabriel in the Akashic Tarot, number 3. He's got the crest of Mercury. I mean, this is pretty obvious here. The messenger, right? So this has got a lot of mercurial quality to it, and it's a divine messenger. So even in the conflict itself, there is a divine message, and you don't really get it until you're willing to go into the dark space of Scorpio or the 8th house in order to get to you know, the essence of the power that's created in relationship. And that's where wisdom, that's where alchemy is able to come from. So we get this divine messenger here, Sag. So I'm going to just see what else comes up, if anything else. Well, and then we'll pick an animal message, because that's, you know, for me personally, I have a lot of animal messaging in my own life spiritually. They show up just so perfectly. Oh, there we go. Ooh. So the 5 of Roses, right? The garden. It's reversed. I'll tell you, and we didn't talk about any of the Aries energy in the 5th house, but this garden reversed is Chiron. So I would pay attention to the ways that we kind of limit ourselves from having fun, playing, being feeling safe enough to play and explore, because that's what the garden really is. It's the emotional quality of being able, you know, being encased in this this garden, right? There's 2 kids and the little boy in the black and red is using like it's not a telescope, but it's something, or no, I think it's more of a slingshot. He's got a slingshot, and then the little girl's got a magnifying glass, and there's a little butterfly that they're looking at. So when it's reversed like this, I think there's a hard time. There's some wounding and then some worthiness in terms of our ability to be playful, to have fun, to discover, and that's, you know, the 5th house. For you, Sag, that is, where's your passion? And I think Chiron is holding a lot of people back right now from being optimistic and feeling like they're even, you know, that they're even able to or worthy of this type of playfulness and exploration. So let's pick an animal messages card. So this deck is Stephen D. Farmer, and it's a ridiculously long name of the deck, but it's basically animal messages. There we go. The emu. This is a good time to go on a new adventure. And so doesn't an emu kind of look like an ostrich? Now that takes us full circle all the way back to Alpha Centauri and the fact that it's connected to the ostrich in the Arabic So, Emu, this is a good time to go on a new adventure, right? So, what's right in front of you, Sag? What's in your previous thought processes, whatever thought patterns and behaviors you are used to being involved with? They're already gone. They've already started going through the destructive process. And if not now, then soon, right? Maybe Pluto is still in your second house, but for the most part, the change is already happening, and the need to eliminate what is already gone is very, very present. So it's time to go on a new adventure, right? The emu. And the emu, like an ostrich, I think, is very much a bird, like a ground bird. So let's see if there's anything else that comes up with the emu. Just, and I've been reading cards for decades, right? I still use the books because it's just like something new pops out every time. Your sense of adventure is calling. Can you hear it? Listen to your heart of hearts, the still small voice that whispers to you of holy and exotic places and of the pleasure in discovering the unfamiliar and novel, feeling confident and trusting in your instincts and intuition to guide you on your journey. And I think this has a lot to do with relationship for the Sag people in general, right? Dismiss the voice that says, yeah, that sounds good, but I can't do that because of X, Y, or Z, right? It's time to get rid of that. And I think that the ghosts of some of that thinking are still hanging around, Sag, and I think it's really time to just like clean that up and move on from that. And that's what Pluto is doing. And it makes it a little bit more difficult to establish a practice or a routine or know what we're doing with ourselves every day. But don't you worry, because Uranus is making sure that nothing is stable in your sixth house, Sag. So all right, my friends, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for being here. I truly appreciate all of you so very much. Everything you need is in the description box below in terms of monthly membership. If you're interested in weekly astrology forecasts and all other types of benefits, my website is down there. My email is down there, I think. If not, you can get a hold of me through the website. I am going to be putting out a report for the upcoming June solstice. There will be a reading sale soon, so just keep an eye out for that. You can always get on the email list through my website, and that keeps you up to date. There's social media. Everything you need is in the description box. So take care of yourself, Sag. Please enjoy the full moon. It's going to be, it's already been quite a whopper, I'll have to tell you. And I'll see you on the other side. Take care.